Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to be, kind of cracking open Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
It's a classic.
Yeah, and I think we can unearth some golden nuggets in here.
Yeah.
Forget those get-rich-quick schemes. We are after lasting financial freedom. And I think Kiyosaki's approach to money is a great place to start. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think that, his approach is really all about understanding the mindset of wealthy people or how to become wealthy. It's more than just, learning tricks and tips. It's really about changing your relationship with money.
Yeah.
And I think he does a really good job of breaking it down in a really accessible way.
Yeah, and I think he does that right out the gate. He starts with a great anecdote, right? He talks about growing up with two father figures, his own dad and then his friend's dad. And he said they had wildly different views when it came to money.
Yeah, that's like the foundation of the book.
Yeah.
Right, like he calls them his poor dad and his rich dad. And what I think is really interesting is how their beliefs about money really shaped how they, gave advice and how they kind of move through the world.
Okay, so give us the breakdown. How did these two dads differ when it came to their views on money?
So his poor dad, who was a teacher, believed that, a good education was the key to a good life, right? Go, study hard, get good grades, go to college, get a secure job. That was kind of his philosophy.
It's pretty classic advice that I think a lot of us hear growing up.
Absolutely. I mean, it's well-intentioned, right? But his rich dad kind of flips the script and says, well, that's great. But a lot of times what that does is it prepares us to become really good employees, not necessarily financially free.
He wasn't dissing a good education, though, was he?
No, not at all. Not at all. What he was saying was that, education, learning shouldn't stop, right? After you graduate, whether you graduate high school, college, whatever, that's just one piece of the puzzle. And he really stresses that, formal education is important, but you need financial literacy as well. You need to understand how money works. That's as crucial as any degree.
And that's where I think, this concept of working for money versus having your money work for you
Exactly.
comes in, right?
That's a central theme in the book. And his rich dad really believed in building assets, right?
Yeah.
Things that put money in your pocket.
Uh-huh.
Whereas, the poor dad, again, not bad, totally fine, focused on, earning a good paycheck, which is important. We need to live. We need to, survive. But that doesn't necessarily lead to long-term wealth.
So it's this idea of creating income streams that are flowing even if you're not clocking in, 9 to 5 every day.
Exactly. And to kind of illustrate this point, he brings up this kind of shocking story. He talks about the richest men in America from 1923.
Okay.
And many of them, despite having these massive fortunes, ended up bankrupt or died penniless.
Why? What happened?
And his point is that they lacked financial intelligence. They knew how to earn money, but they didn't know how to manage it or grow it. And it's this really stark reminder that financial literacy is essential no matter how much money you have.
That's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just earn. You need to know what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
How to make your money work for you.
Absolutely. And this leads us into one of Kiyosaki's, I think, most famous concepts, which is the difference between assets and liabilities.
Okay, let's unpack that. How does Kiyosaki define those two things?
Yeah.
Assets and liabilities.
So he keeps it, I think, really simple and really powerful. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out.
Okay.
And this might sound straightforward, but he really challenges some assumptions about what actually qualifies as an asset.
Like how most people consider their house their biggest asset.
Exactly. And he argues that while a house obviously provides shelter, it often acts as a liability, right? Because it's taking money out of your pocket each month.
Yeah.
The mortgage, the property taxes, the maintenance, all of that.
Yeah.
Those expenses can actually drain your finances instead of boosting them.
Yeah, it's definitely going against the grain, I think, for a lot of people, especially because, for a lot of people, that's their most significant, quote unquote, investment is their house.
Right. And he uses his own experiences to kind of illustrate this. He talks about how, upgrading to a bigger, more expensive house can often lead to this false sense of wealth, right? It's a status symbol, but it also comes with higher expenses. And it can kind of keep you trapped in that rat race.
So if not a house, what kind of assets should people be focusing on?
He really encourages building a portfolio of income-generating assets, right? And this could be anything from rental properties that generate passive income to stocks that pay dividends to owning a business that doesn't require your constant attention.
And so it's about like really diversifying those income streams.
Yes.
And creating that freedom through assets that are working harder than you are.
Exactly. And he uses the example of Ray Kroc, who's, the mastermind behind McDonald's. And Kroc famously said, I'm not in the hamburger business, I'm in the real estate business.
Because he was buying the land.
Right.
Under the franchises.
Yeah.
He understood that owning those tangible assets, the real estate itself, was really, key to building that lasting wealth.
Exactly. It's such a, I think, brilliant illustration of how, changing your perspective on what an asset is can lead to incredible financial success.
Yeah, so we're talking about, minding your own business.
Yeah.
Not just in the traditional sense, but building that asset column, that portfolio.
Yes.
Of things that are generating that income. And he does say that the rich play by a different set of rules.
He does.
Right. Good.
He does. And this is where I think things get really intriguing, particularly when he starts to dive into the world of corporations.
Okay. I will admit that's where I start to, feel a little lost. Like corporations and taxes, it feels very overwhelming.
It can be.
So what does he mean by, the rich play by a different set of rules?
So he's not suggesting anything illegal, don't worry. It's really about understanding the legal structures and financial strategies that wealthy individuals and entrepreneurs utilize to their advantage.
Okay, so give us some specifics. Like what kind of rules are we talking about here?
So for example, he talks about how corporations can offer significant tax advantages and asset protection that just a regular employee might not have access to.
Okay.
And he argues that this is a key way that the wealthy build and preserve their wealth.
For example?
So like, let's say, deductions.
Okay.
Right. A corporation can often deduct expenses related to generating income, like travel, or even a portion of your home office, right, that an individual, might not be able to. And so this can reduce their tax burden, leaving them with more money to reinvest.
Interesting. So it's not about avoiding paying taxes altogether. It's just about using the law to your advantage.
Exactly.
To optimize what you're paying.
Exactly. And I think, his point is not to make it seem more complicated, but to actually try to demystify it a little bit.
Yeah.
And to say, be aware of these strategies, talk to experts, see if it aligns with your goals.
Yeah, it's about empowering yourself with the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Because even if you don't become a financial whiz overnight, like just knowing the rules of the game can help to level the playing field a little bit.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of your financial future.
Yeah.
And that begins with understanding what's available to you.
Yeah, this is great. So we've kind of covered, the contrasting mindsets of the rich versus the poor and middle class, this idea of assets versus liabilities, even got a little bit into how the wealthy kind of play by a different set of financial rules. Like what else does Kiyosaki say about, this path to financial freedom? This is fascinating stuff. Like we've really laid the groundwork here for kind of understanding that rich dad philosophy, but I'm sure some listeners are wondering, like, okay, this is great in theory, but what's stopping me? Like what's preventing me from actually achieving this kind of financial freedom? Like, are there things I should be aware of?
Yeah, and that's where Kiyosaki, he dives into what he calls the 5 main obstacles to wealth. And he's very clear that these aren't like, external factors like, oh, the economy's bad or, there's not enough opportunity. He's talking about internal roadblocks, things that we often put up ourselves.
Okay, so let's hear it. Like, what are these internal money monsters, as it were, that we need to conquer?
So he lists them as fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Wow. Those are pretty powerful emotions. Let's break those down a little bit. What does he say about like fear, for example?
Well, he starts by acknowledging that everybody, even the wealthy, experiences fear when it comes to money.
Okay.
It's natural, right? We're afraid of making a mistake or losing money, failing, all of that.
Oh, good. I thought it was just me then getting those financial jitters, as it were. I'm reassured to know that even, seasoned investors experience fear. So it's not, it's not just me.
Absolutely. But here's, I think, a key difference. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about how you choose to respond to it.
Okay.
And Kiyosaki argues that, wealthy people, they don't let fear paralyze them. They acknowledge it, they analyze it, and then they take calculated risks.
So it's about becoming fearless in the face of financial decisions.
I wouldn't say fearless, but definitely courageous, right? He tells this great story about Texans and how they have this saying, like, if you're going to go broke, go big.
Yeah.
Now, he's not advocating for reckless behavior, but it's more about the mindset.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's that willingness to embrace risk.
Yeah.
Right. Understanding that failure is part of the journey and not letting that fear of losing out on potential rewards hold you back from taking action.
Exactly. Kiyosaki believes that playing it too safe, letting fear dictate your financial decisions, can actually be more detrimental in the long run.
Because you're missing out on opportunities to grow.
Exactly.
To make your money work harder for you. It reminds me of that saying, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all.
Exactly. And he connects that to cynicism, which he sees as kind of fear disguised as skepticism. So think about that person who shoots down every investment idea.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With a list of reasons why it won't work. That's often fear masquerading as practicality.
That rings very true. I've definitely encountered, people like that in my life who just they're almost allergic to the very idea of even trying something different, especially when it comes to money.
He uses the example of people who are like, oh, I don't want to deal with tenants when it comes to real estate investing.
Yeah.
They focus so much on the potential downsides that they miss the potential upside.
They're closing themselves off to a whole world of possibility because of fear, even if they're, like you said, they're kind of masking it as something else.
Exactly. Now let's talk about laziness, another obstacle.
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily mean like, sitting on the couch all day.
Right.
He talks about a different kind of laziness, one that traps, I think, even the busiest people.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does he mean by lazy, if not the traditional definition?
He is talking about the people who are always working in their business, but never on their business or their financial future.
Okay.
They're so caught up in the day-to-day grind that they never step back to actually invest time in learning or strategizing or seeking out new opportunities.
So they're working hard, but they're not necessarily working smart.
Exactly. It's like running on a treadmill. You're putting in the effort, but you're not really getting anywhere financially.
Yeah.
So Kiyosaki emphasizes, the importance of carving out dedicated time to work on your financial future, not just in your current situation.
So how do we overcome that trap of being busy, but also being lazy in a sense?
He suggests building systems and habits that either automate or delegate tasks so you free up your time and your mental energy to focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's about working smarter, not just harder.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're constantly, bogged down in the day-to-day, it's really easy to lose sight of the long-term, goals. What about bad habits? Like, what are some common financial, pitfalls that we should try to avoid?
So Kiyosaki is a huge proponent of the pay yourself first philosophy.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of setting aside a portion of your income for savings or investing, building that asset column before you pay anyone else.
I've heard this before, but it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you are living paycheck to paycheck.
It takes discipline. But he argues that it's crucial for building lasting wealth. He observes that most people, we prioritize paying everyone else first. The landlord, the credit card company, the utility bill.
Right.
And then there's nothing left.
Yeah. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
If you're not prioritizing your own financial well-being first, it's really hard to then kind of achieve that abundance.
Exactly. And the last obstacle he addresses is arrogance.
Okay. This one's interesting to me. How does arrogance hinder, financial growth?
He defines arrogance as essentially a refusal to learn,
Okay.
a belief that you already know everything. And he says, truly intelligent people, he says, are always eager to learn. They're willing to admit when they don't know something and to seek out mentors who can guide them.
So it's about having the humility to recognize that you don't have all the answers and being open to new information, to new perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it ties into this belief in the power of mentorship, which we can talk about, a little bit more.
Yeah.
But he stresses that surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, who challenge your assumptions, this is invaluable for growth.
Okay. So with all of that said, I mean, how do we start to put these ideas into practice? Like, how do we, overcome those internal obstacles and start to build that rich dad mindset?
So Kiyosaki, he really emphasizes that developing your financial IQ is just as critical as your traditional IQ.
Okay.
It's about educating yourself about money, understanding how it works, and learning how to make it work for you.
And where do we even start with that?
He encourages continuous learning, right? Read books like his, attend seminars, listen to podcasts like this one.
Hey, right? Giving ourselves a little plug here.
There you go. But most importantly, take action.
Yeah.
Knowledge without action is useless. He believes in getting your hands dirty, making offers, even if they get rejected, because each experience, whether it's a success or a failure, is a learning opportunity.
So shifting from that passive observer to an active participant in your financial journey.
Exactly. And that ties into another, I think, really key point, which is this idea of finding your financial genius.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What does he mean by finding your financial genius?
He believes that everybody possesses unique talents, skills, and interests that can be leveraged to create wealth. It's about identifying what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and finding a way to monetize it.
So it's not just about like following a formula. It's really about tapping into your own strengths, your own passions, and creating, a path that's really aligned with who you are as a person.
Exactly. He shares this funny story about how, like, as a kid, him and his friends started, like, a comic book library, like, in their neighborhood, and they would charge their friends, like, a small fee to borrow comics.
Oh,
Right. It's a simple example, but it illustrates the power of creativity and resourcefulness.
it's about finding those opportunities that maybe other people miss.
Yes.
Right.
And not being afraid to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Right. Challenge that conventional wisdom. Like Kiyosaki encourages, like, looking for deals in unexpected places. Like he talks about going to bankruptcy auctions or even connecting with people like postal carriers.
Oh, interesting.
Because they often have inside knowledge about properties that are about to hit the market.
Oh, that's smart.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's about being resourceful, being observant,
Yeah.
and being willing to explore those unconventional paths. He emphasizes that building wealth often requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to see opportunity where others see obstacles.
I love that. This is all great stuff, but like what are some things that listeners can actually do? Like I'm wondering like how we start to really put these ideas into practice.
So he actually offers a bunch of really actionable steps. And he starts with one of the simplest yet, I think, most powerful, which is plant a financial seed.
I like that analogy. Tell me more about planting those financial seeds.
He's talking about making small but consistent investments in your financial education and your asset column. It could be buying a book on personal finance, taking a free online course, or even just setting aside a small amount of money each week for investing.
So starting small, being consistent, and really kind of like nurturing those seeds, right, of financial knowledge and action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He compares it to planting a tree. You don't expect to see like a mighty oak overnight.
Right.
It takes time, consistent care, and nurturing to grow into something substantial.
That really resonates with me because again, it's not about making these drastic overnight changes. It's really about cultivating those positive, financial habits and watching them grow. And speaking of growth, I mean, he talks a lot about, I think, the importance of finding mentors, people who are already financially successful.
Yes.
And can kind of, guide you on that path. What else does he say about finding mentors and leveraging those relationships?
He emphasizes that mentors can provide invaluable insights. They can share their experiences, both successes and failures, and they can hold you accountable.
Like having a financial Sherpa, right?
Yeah.
Guiding you up that mountain of wealth.
I love that. Yes, exactly. And he also talks about the power of networking, connecting with like-minded individuals who are also on the path to financial freedom, because you can learn from each other. You can support each other. You can celebrate wins together.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. He believes that surrounding yourself with people who are driven, who are ambitious, who are financially savvy can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah, it's inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To be around that. So we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We've talked about the 5 internal obstacles, the importance of finding your financial genius. We've talked about, planting those financial seeds, the power of mentorship, networking. What else does Kiyosaki offer in terms of those actionable steps to achieve that financial freedom?
Yeah, so we've explored those internal obstacles, the importance of, finding that financial genius. But for people who are listening who are like, okay, I'm ready to I'm ready to take action. What are some tangible steps that I can take to really kind of kickstart this journey towards, rich dad style financial freedom?
Well, Kiyosaki, he really emphasizes it's not enough to just understand these concepts. You have to put them into action.
Yeah. And one of his, I think, key pieces of advice is get out there and make offers.
Okay, that sounds a little intimidating to me. Like, what does he mean by that? Is he suggesting we all become like real estate moguls overnight?
Not necessarily, but he does encourage being proactive. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity to just fall into your lap. Start exploring, start researching, start putting yourself out there, even if it means facing rejection.
So, like, if someone is interested in real estate, for example, rather than just browsing listings online passively, like, they should actively be reaching out and making offers and kind of like engaging in that process.
Exactly. Each offer, even if it's rejected, is a learning experience. It sharpens your negotiation skills, it helps you understand the market, and it brings you closer to finding those hidden gems.
Yeah, it's about building that confidence
Yes,
and becoming comfortable with the process, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
exactly.
Right.
And this applies to other areas of finance as well, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're interested in investing in a particular company, don't just, watch from the sidelines. Do your research. Connect
Mhm.
with people in the industry. Explore, potential investment avenues.
So it's about transforming from the spectator into that active participant in your financial journey.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And remember, you don't have to do everything yourself, right? Kiyosaki is a big advocate for leveraging other people's time, other people's money, other people's expertise.
So what does that look like, practically speaking?
So, for example, instead of trying to become a tax expert overnight, hire a good accountant. Instead of trying to, navigate the complexities of a real estate transaction all on your own, find a savvy realtor who understands your goals.
It's like assembling your own, like, dream team, like financial dream team,
Exactly.
right? Surrounding yourself with experts who can help you make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder. Right. And of course, we can't forget one of Kiyosaki's, core principles, which is pay yourself first.
Yes. Which, we touched on this earlier, but I think it bears repeating because it's a habit that seems so simple in theory,
It does.
but it's so crucial, I think, for building that long-term wealth.
It's about shifting your mindset from prioritizing everyone else's financial needs to putting your own financial well-being first.
Yeah, and even if it's just a small amount.
Absolutely.
At first, like the key is to make it a consistent habit.
Exactly. Automatically route a portion of your income to a savings account or an investment account before you even have a chance to spend it.
Okay.
Over time, those small actions can make a huge difference.
Yeah. So to kind of like bring it all together, that rich dad path to financial freedom, it involves, developing that mindset, that wealth building mindset. It involves, continuously learning
Yes.
about money, taking those calculated risks, and then, building that network of mentors
Yes.
and experts. And of course, never forgetting to pay yourself first.
You got it. It's about taking control of your finances,
Yeah.
challenging that conventional wisdom, and really creating a life of abundance on your own terms.
Yeah. And I think, Kiyosaki's book, it's full of actionable advice. It's, thought-provoking. It's not, like we said, like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right.
It really is more of a guidebook for changing your relationship with money.
Absolutely. He reminds us that financial freedom is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It requires ongoing effort, a willingness to learn and adapt, and a commitment to building that brighter financial future.
Yeah. Like he famously said, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep and how hard it works for you.
That's right.
So true.
And perhaps even more importantly, it's about how your relationship with money shapes your life and the legacy you build.
That's a powerful takeaway. So for our listeners who are, ready to start their own rich dad inspired journey, what's like one piece of advice that you would leave them with?
I think Kiyosaki says it best. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind.
Ooh, I like that.
If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth. Invest in your financial education. Cultivate those those empowering beliefs about money, and never stop learning and growing.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's a great note to end on. A huge thank you to our expert for taking this deep dive with us, and to our listeners, we hope this episode has inspired you to think differently about money and empowered you to really take control of your financial future.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, that path to financial freedom is paved with knowledge, action, and that willingness to embrace the rich dad mindset.
I love it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.